Good morning, friends. It's good to be here this morning. Let's take just a moment and gather our breath. Okay. Well, it's good to be here this morning. It's been a while. Today I'm not sure what the program is going to look like. We're just going to go with it. I came in this morning to hold my open practice here at the Beside, and I just decided pretty much as I came in, I started going through some of the motions of setting up for the broadcast, and I thought, I'm just going to go with this. So I decided to open this up for this. And it's interesting the feelings that start coming up for me, even considering that in my standard practice when I'm not broadcasting this and sharing this practice with others, I generally sit in total silence. Sometimes I'll use a sound bowl or a bell. Occasionally I'll chant mantra, but mostly I'm sitting in silence, and it's pretty quickly that I can slip into a meditative state when it's like that. And that's what made me think of the paradox this morning. So many paradoxes on every layer of our existence. And I think this one being when I am in the world on my terms, when I'm alone, when I'm in a quiet room that's beautifully lit, that's natural materials and a light scent of sandalwood incense and a candle, and I have tea brewing in a pot. When I have all of these elements and I'm totally alone, I can go right into the meditative state. I can be calm, and I can be filled with a radiant level of peace. And the paradox there is that this practice is a practice to not sit alone in a room with every element just so and be at peace, but to be peace in loud rooms, to be peace in loud worlds that don't smell good and that don't have proper lighting. And so as soon as I create this connection in my mind, this is the paradoxical levels that exist here. In my mind, there's nothing different in this room right now than when I don't have this laptop and camera and microphone set up. I could just as easily be here in this moment, and everything else is the same. The room is still well lit, and it's cold, but it's manageable. And I've got blankets if I really need another layer of warmth. So I've got everything I still need, but with this connection that I create, it also creates this illusion in my mind that something is different in this room. This illusion that all of a sudden I don't have everything that I need. I don't have everything I need. In a moment, just a few buttons here and there, a couple clicks on the keyboard. Suddenly I am a being that lacks, or that may lack. Suddenly I go from sitting in this room that's built with love and that holds and contains so much of the recipe for calm and acceptance, and in that moment, when I hit go, we're streaming live, all of a sudden the shift begins. Well, honestly, the shift probably began the moment I decided to do the broadcast. The anxiety started to appear, and I just think it's so wonderful. Such a steadfast teacher to be able to recognize in the same moment that nothing has changed and everything is different. And the thing with paradoxes is that they don't make sense. They're not logical and rational. It's not reasonable to have this thing that's both true and seemingly unable to be true at the same time. But that's what's so absolutely engaging in today's meditation practice. That paradox. Nothing has changed and everything is different. So in some ways, the moment of decision between sitting in the meditation hall and having a solo practice in the perfect conditions for meditation and easily falling into that meditative state and spending however much time I'd like in that space and exploring these internal spheres, these layers that are timid when there's others around. And the recognition that there is a lot of benefit to my experience to do that. There's a lot of benefit in taking time to yourself, but recognizing also paradoxically that exactly the person I need to meet each day is the person that is scared, is the person that is anxious, is the person that is insecure, and that's the person that I need to meet, because that's the person that I spend so much time attempting to avoid, attempting to reject and deny. So here it is. There's the lesson for me today. There's the teacher's in the room when I sit down and I have to meet myself and I'm terrified of it. And I don't do that the same when I am alone in a room. It does require the presence, or at least the illusion of the presence of others. See, this is where it gets really juicy. I don't have the opportunity to be with the parts of myself that I am afraid of when I am alone in the same way. For others, it may be very different than that. Maybe being alone with yourself is the terrifying prospect. But these, again, are the paradoxes, the layers of existence that each of us have in any moment. And the realities that exist in some of these layers are that it's all going away. Always. As many times as we can sit in this space and meet this thing, each time we do, we are meeting the thing in a different way. My body is older. My mind is tired. My experience is a bit more formed, sometimes a bit more hardened, more chiseled, jaded. So each time I meet this thing, and this person that I'm meeting is oftentimes 40 years old. It's been here for 40 years, but it remains 6 years old. That part of myself remains 9 years old. And that's the part that I'm meeting again and again and again. And that's the part I'm rejecting again and again and again. Wow. There's that 9-year-old child that we are rejecting again and again and again. And here we are, sitting in these separate spaces, insulated to some degree from the world as a whole. Let's take that opportunity to welcome all of those parts of ourselves that don't always have a seat at the table. And breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and breathing out. I'm curious where you meet your paradoxes, where you come to those crossroads that seem to take you in two different directions, but then you start to recognize it's a loop. It's like a figure eight, on and on and on. But there's a crossroad at every moment. There's a crossroad. You come to that place where you could go one way or the other, but you always keep coming back. And the beautiful thing in the figure eight is the crossroads is always at the center. The center of it all. So we get to our center and we find those the ultimate paradox is the awareness of all of the ways you can go with the knowledge that it brings you right back home. Wow. What do we do with that? What makes which path the right path if there are no wrong paths? Looking back on my life, I've seen many times where I've taken these directions that have led me down some extremely difficult places. And they've led me to some vastly beautiful places. So I think that for myself, some of those moments when I got to that point in the journey on that particular path, on any particular path, that I realized that I'm not steering this boat anymore. I've made the choice to go this way, and I'm doing this. But there's a point where I have to let go of this illusion that I am making this pathway, that I'm steering the way forward. I have to release. And the benefit of some of the more difficult roads is that is pretty much built in to the pathway. Addiction is a great example. Going down that pathway. I remember as a kid there was those commercials. No one says I want to be a junkie when I grow up, but there is a reality that exists that I did. In some ways, I had this romantic view of this destitute, pained artist from a very young age, from seeing movies and getting concepts or ideas in my head about what that romanticized lifestyle, the Scarface lifestyle, or the Morrison that was depicted in the film The Doors, which has been, well, anyway, I'm not going to defend who Jim Morrison was. Jim Morrison knows who Jim Morrison was. Whatever it was that led me down that path, there was something romantic about it. But then there comes a place on that path where it's very quickly that you recognize you are not in control. And that's kind of the beautiful aspect of that rock bottom notion, is that it becomes much easier to identify the lack of control that one can exert when one is in such a starkly messy existence. And I'm not suggesting run out and start doing cocaine. What I'm suggesting is that the more we benefit from the illusion of our control, the longer it might take us to release our need to control. I want to say that again so I can hear it myself. The more that we benefit from the illusion of control, the longer it will take us to release our need to control. And then you have to look at the layers of who's benefiting in that relationship at any moment. Which part of me is benefiting? When I have control and can suppress that 9-year-old kid who is trying to sit at the table, who is filled with pain and scars of rejection, and I continue to reject, I benefit in that I've seemingly hardened myself against the fear of rejection, and I don't care what anybody thinks. And then I end up just being alone anyway. You get to that place where you don't actually have the depth of relationships that are sustainable because you haven't actually given yourself completely to those relationships. So there's always one foot out the door, and eventually both feet are out the door. And so you're winning the battle against a 9-year-old kid who fears rejection. And that voice keeps coming up and you keep silencing it. No, no, no. I'm not listening to you. If we're having a problem, it's their fault. And I'm just going to leave. So there it is. There comes the repeated behavior of control to protect yourself from feeling what this injured part of yourself is holding. But when you recognize that there's only a benefit on one layer of your existence and there's all these other layers of who you are that are just being depleted of the nutrient, right? Then you release control. And you allow those feelings to move through. And you start to embrace that 9-year-old, and you start to embrace the healing that comes with the wounding. And every wound will heal. It will heal if allowed to. And that's, I'm sure people will debunk that, or they'll have something to say about that, but people will often argue that forgiveness is not necessary. And I don't have a kind or gentle way to say it absolutely is. So I'm just going to say it absolutely is. And I don't know anybody who at their moment of death is able to even hold on to their grudge or their anger or their resentment. But they can hold it and grip it tightly to that last couple of breaths. And then they realize, oh, even this I have to release. Even this I have to let go of. So I don't agree when people say that forgiveness isn't necessary. Now, I don't think that forgiveness has very much to do with the other person. If you'd like it to, it can, but mostly it's just about what you're willing to let go of. The control of. The illusion of control has to fall away. Has to fall away. And there's the paradox. When you release your illusion of control, you find yourself always on the right path. Wow. Where does that come from? How do we even get here? It's so unlikely that you and I are in this moment together. Everything that had to happen along the way for you and I to be in this moment together is so unlikely. But it's not a miracle. It's not magic. And it's not a mistake. It's when we release the illusion that we are in control that we find we are always on the right path. And I think when we start thinking we're on the wrong path, that's exactly the path we needed to be on to get to that understanding. And there's nothing more liberating than recognizing, oh, this path sucks. I'm switching. I am letting go of this and I am moving over. And that's really, if we think about it, that's really just when we meet our boundary time and again and we exceed our boundaries, that we finally get to a place where we go, I don't need to repeat this anymore. Now the question there becomes, am I going to do the exact same thing with a different language over here? Or am I going to actually let go of what I thought was steering me? And that's, we don't know. Who knows? And I just was really relishing the paradox this morning. I think Ram Dass had a paradox that he talked about with control that is, it comes from the notion of when we finally come to a place where we let go of everything, we can have anything. And this has been twisted and distorted because there's a layer of existence there that's absolutely the reality, but that layer of existence gets switched over into the material world. People hear that and they create entire workshops and retreats where people come to learn how to manifest a fucking Mercedes. Yeah. Fuck, you got nothing. You got nothing. You got $1 billion, you got nothing. It's nothing. I had a relationship once with some very wealthy people who accused me of stealing from them as I was working for them, and they were questioning every minute on my time card. Why did this take you 30 minutes? Why? And I was already getting paid less than livable wage. And then they had the audacity to suggest that I was stealing from them. And I said, the difference between you and me is I'm so rich that I don't need your money. I don't need money. And you're so poor that all you have is money. And I quit. I quit. Because I didn't need their money. And they needed it more than me. So, yeah, when we start applying the realities of the different layers and we switch them over, I think we eventually find on that path that level of control is still the illusion. I don't know if I'm just rambling now, so let's take some breaths. Let's hear the bell, and let's just breathe together. Breathing in through the nose to the bottom of the belly, allowing the belly to rise and fall, but letting the chest just relax and the shoulders relax. Breathing in and then breathing out longer than you breathe in. Breathe out a little bit more than you breathe in. Okay, friends, it's good to be coming back here today. This will probably not be a regular offering for some time as we make some transitions here. I just wanted to be on here today to follow what path I was on and see how it felt. And this is how it felt, and I'm glad to be here, really glad to be here sharing this. We are in person here most mornings. You can message me through Messenger if that's how you can contact me, through Facebook or Instagram. You can send me a message on Instagram as well. I don't check it very often, but I will check it to see if I'm going to be here in the morning and the meditation hall will be open. I'll be gone for a couple of weeks at the end of this week, but I hope that you're able to move through some of these layers in this dormant winter period. We have this opportunity to be in the darkness a bit more. This is the dark time, and we're coming up to that solstice, that space when the sun stays still, in the darkest time of the year. Be in the dark. Be in the dark. In fact, I don't have... Wendell Berry's book is in my office in the back, so I don't have it exactly memorized, but I think this is a great example. To Know the Dark by Wendell Berry. To go in the dark with the light is to know the light. To know the dark, go dark. Go without sight. And find that the dark too blooms and sings and is traveled by dark feet and dark wings. To go in the dark with the light is to know the light. To know the dark, go dark. Here we are. We're in the darkest time of the year. We don't have to do anything to bring the sun back except for be aware when it returns. It's bringing awareness at any moment that recognizes we are always shifting. And if you look, interestingly, there's these beautiful time-lapse photos of the sun on its path throughout the year, a photo taken each day at the same time of day, and you can see it's a figure 8. It's that paradox. You get to the center and there's the crossroads. You can go anywhere you want to go, but it's going to bring you right back to the center. You're always going to come back to the center. And it's everything that's on these spheres out here, all of these, that's where every one of the teachers live. Every one of the teachers, they're all there. So right now, we're at a point of stillness, of dark and of quiet. Be there. Listen deeply. Listen deeply. And breathe. Be well, friends.